Welcome to the Soul Sparkle Living Show, your sacred space for inspiration, elevation, and living a life that truly lights you up from the inside out. I'm your host, Hayley Hines, and today I'm thrilled to welcome a radiant and beautiful soul and dear friend, Genine Howard. Welcome, Genine.
Thank you so much.
Genine is a true embodiment of soulful freedom, and we're going to dive into this here in the conversation today. She's an intuitive guide, seasoned entrepreneur, and a world traveler who helps others break free from traditional molds and live a radically free, unapologetic life. She has so much wisdom to share. She has moved her family from selling everything in Australia, traveling the world, and now you are, in this present moment, on the island of Soros in Greece. Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Well, I just definitely want to hear all the stories and all the magic. You know, going back to that idea of this radically free life, and you and I have talked about this multiple times. I really do feel like you embody that so completely, so fully, and really are almost like a beacon of that in your world to other people, right? To see what's possible and to show them that even just taking one brave step is a remarkable way to step into a whole new way of living, serving, etc. So I definitely want to talk a little bit more about that. Can you tell us maybe what guided that decision? Like what was the thing that made you decide to just sell the farm and travel the world? What was that?
Yeah, so it all comes down to a vision that I have had for years. And it was this one little vision that was also shared with my husband, and that was for us to live in Italy in a small town for 3 months.
Okay.
Right? We just, like, I had always pictured it, like I'm in a little town and I'm buying bread from the bakery. We've got the children there and we're walking everywhere. And, you know, you can feel it. And this is years and years ago. Anyway, and then it all culminated synchronistically, as, you know, one does when you're open to magic. And I'd actually booked a holiday in Italy for my 50th birthday a couple of years ago. And it just so happened that we found like a world schooling community, and they had like this 3-month cohort in a small town in Italy. And of course, it was actually started the day after we were checking out of our beautiful villa on the Amalfi Coast. All right, so we literally were, oh my God, it's my birthday. By the way, we also renewed our vows in Italy, you know, went to Capri, all of the things. And yeah, and went and joined this world schooling community for 3 months. Great, lovely. But it was in that moment that when we met a lot of people who were traveling the world, many of them who had actually sold everything and this was their full-time living. The day after we got home, my husband and I were walking down our street, which we loved. Like, we had such a gorgeous community, beautiful house, white picket fence, chickens, like all of the things, right? We actually had just renovated the house, had a few little things to go. So we had like the dream life. But we both said, how about we sell everything and just throw it all to the wind and go and live in Europe? And we literally did. So within 3 months, we'd finished the renovations in 30 days, got the house on the market, and within 30 days sold it at auction. Within 30 days had sold every item of furniture, everything. We didn't keep anything. There's no storage facility. There's nothing. And we left Australia with a suitcase and a backpack each. So we've got 2 children who are now 10 and 12. And we have literally been living this most incredible, vibrant, radiant, free, sovereign life in all sorts of ways, which we can talk about more detail. But yeah, I mean, we basically own nothing, but we have everything. We are so freaking abundant and living like literally our best lives. Literally. You know it. We are.
I love what you said about owning nothing but having everything, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, and I've done it twice, a few times. I've bought all the things, sold all the things, let go of all the things, right? Yeah. Multiple times now. And let me tell you, there is nothing like the freedom of not having so much stuff. It truly is a remarkable lightness. Like, it just creates a lightness of spirit. I think the more we have, the more we own, the more we have to maintain, just the heavier it feels.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but when I did my first release of everything, it is actually quite emotional at first, because you think, wow, all the sentimental things and all the this and all the that. But what I realize is that if I just take the few bits that really, really matter, there's very few in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah.
And the freedom to be able to be anywhere and do whatever you want to do and not be shackled to your stuff is a quite remarkable feeling.
It really is. And look, to be honest, we love living in apartments. So, we used to have land, and in Australia, we like all of the trees and hills and all of the things. And now we've been used to living in little 2-bedroom apartments, and oh my God, the freedom of that, no car, nothing, and walking everywhere. So obviously we're quite selective about where we live. We like smaller places, and that is so free to be able to walk out the front door, go and get your groceries, climb many stairs. We live on a Greek island.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like this,
upstairs.
which is great. And like literally, I messaged you earlier to say, okay, we're doing camera today. I've just dived in the water, So look, this is what's happened with my hair. We've just scooped it up.
Perfect.
But like I thought that I needed all of the things. I thought I needed the cushions that I karate chop. I thought I needed the throws. I thought I needed, the beautiful decorations. And it actually worked out that underlying all of that, and you mentioned this, I actually had a lot of stress. I had a lot of stress like, oh my God, there's a mark on the cushion. Oh my goodness, things are getting dusty. Things are getting worn. Like that stress of maintaining everything is just gone now. And, currently we're living in one of my dear friends' apartment here on Syros, and it's divine.
Gorgeous. So beautiful.
We're just saying the honeycomb wall, which is quite relevant in
Uh-huh.
all of the things that you will soon discuss, I'm sure.
Yep.
But how perfect is that?
It's
That we
so
just
pretty.
land in this gorgeous apartment. And I've got the things that there's actually some lovely cushions I can karate chop as well.
I love it. What I've realized too is that for me, it's not about, obviously the accommodation, like the space that I'm in is important for it to feel calm and soothing and lovely. But what I've realized is I need the outdoor space. I need the beauty outside. I need to be able to get to water relatively with ease, right? That's where, or mountains or some kind of something nature, that is what feeds my spirit and makes me so happy versus having a big house. And I've had all the stuff. It's not like, sometimes you have to have it and realize you don't actually want it. Otherwise you think you want it until you get it. And you're like, it's not that big a deal. Right.
Yeah.
So I love that you've been able to find the rhythm and the thing that works for you. And I love that your husband was on board and your kids are happy and thriving, and how beautiful, because I think for a lot of people that might have this dream that we both have had for such a long time, they might not have the support of their family to do it, or they may not know the path. And it can also be fairly isolating. This is something you and I have also talked about offline. I love that you were able to lock in with that community of people that you have the best time with, because if you're traveling by yourself, it can be lonely if you don't have community and connection. So I love that you've been able to find your way to that. And I don't know if you want to chat about where you're headed on the path. Like you might be creating an opportunity for people with families that might want to do something similar to you guys. You want to share a little more about that too?
Yeah, definitely. I guess with that particular world schooling community, it was a really lovely soft landing for us. So it's a built-in community. They even gave you housing and education for the kids. And we've loved it, and we've been with them for 18 months now, on and off. But now, we're really wanting to spread our wings, and I'm very clear on my values. I'm clear on my values of how I want to live, how I want to raise my children, and even how to educate our children. And I always have had very clear values on that. And so I guess we're in a position now where, it's time that we actually do things our way. And so, I am looking at ways of creating more of a holistic education for our children. I'm like the anti-school lady. Like, I'm a teacher by trade. I went to university to teach high school students, and I started teaching, and I was like, what is this classroom situation? My background straight after that, I've actually been in tourism. So I'm a tour guide by trade, biologist. I've lived on islands. I've lived in the Daintree National Park. So my way of teaching has always been in the environment, in the immersion,
Experience.
experiential. And so, yeah, I'm really focused now on creating more experiences for my children. So whether it's cultural experiences, natural immersion, like even today, just taking the children off the platform and going swimming and snorkeling and looking at fish and urchins and all of the things. So yes, I will you know, I naturally attract people as well. So whether it's in my business mentoring company or with community. So it's interesting. We've come back to Syros here after we went to Spain for 3 months, and we already feel at home. Like we already have a new community. We've got beautiful local people that we've connected with over the last 18 months. So it feels very grounded here, feels very supported. Yeah.
I love it. So if people are interested in that way of living, they're going to want to stay in touch with you and follow your
Yeah,
journey, right? As you
definitely.
grow and develop. And we'll make sure that I'll put all of your contact information here in this episode so that way they can for sure stay in touch. Now, I do want to dive into the bees.
Yes.
Um, because there are no accidents in my opinion and in my world. I always feel like we're guided to exactly where we need to be, connect with the exact people that we need to. And there has been a thing that has happened over the last, I would say 6 months for you specifically, maybe longer,
Yeah.
more more prominently around this idea of like honeycomb and this idea of financial sovereignty and how you can create wealth and abundance with so much more ease and grace than we've ever been taught, told, trained, etc. Do you want to share a little bit more about kind of that path that you're
Yeah.
on with the bees and the honey and the frequency of that? And because it just, to me, it just gives me the chills on what's possible, you know,
Yeah.
especially in this new, kind of in this new earth that we're anchoring in and how we can do life financially anyway.
Yeah, totally. How it started was a channeled message, as one does, a while ago. And the channeled message was often I get channeled messages and they're very simplistic. It is
Right.
what it is, right? And so the message was the original human DNA codes are held by the bees. You know, it's like, okay, what am I doing with this? Anyway, so you let things just unfold and happen. Then I read somewhere that Crete, the island of Crete, which is very close to where I live, and I also lived on Crete for a while, and you were in Crete,
Okay.
that is the actual location for where the original human DNA codes reside. And then, of course, you know, things unfold, and I was connected in with women who'd been on a retreat on Crete with a shaman who actually was showing them the sacred sites and the frequency of the bees and the hexagon and the honeycomb and the hive and the symbolism through Greek culture. And then, you know, the store lady up the road, she talks all the time about how Greeks really worship the honey and worship the bees and worship the honeycomb. And so then I go to Egypt for the second time. And the second time I go to Egypt, of course, I see bee hieroglyphs everywhere. I'm talking everywhere.
But you probably didn't notice them before the first time, did
No,
you?
the first time. So I went in November 2023 and didn't notice the bees. And then because of this new message, I'm seeing them everywhere. And so then reading and channeling knowledge about how the Egyptians, they worshipped honey, they worshipped the gold, they worshipped the sacred geometry. And so the more that I dived into this and the more that I allowed myself to receive more information, it was very much about the more that we anchor in the sacred geometry of the hexagon, of the honeycomb, of the bee, of the hive, of the queen bee into our body, into our energetic field. And I almost imagine it like a coming down through the body, through all of the field. Doing that, I can feel energy, coming through my body. And it's like grounding that into our field. We become closer to nature. We activate the human DNA, like the DNA within us that is the original codes before we became programmed and in paradigms of working in, you know, a patriarchal society. And so it's the bees are showing us that they are nature. They're connected to nature. The frequency of them is nature. It's within us. It's inside our DNA. That is our natural state. And so just like the bees, the natural state, so the female bees go out and they are guided towards the flowers. And they're guided towards them. They're not searching. They are literally guided by the quarks in the quantum field. So they see that the lines are literally painted there for them, for want of a better word. You know, the golden path is shown to them. And then they come back to the hive, and then everybody has their place. Everybody has their duty, their roles. There is no should I, shouldn't I, who am I? It is what it is. And so when we start becoming that frequency, the golden path for us gets shown. So whether that's the golden path to freedom, to money, to wealth, to literal physical things, to all of the potentiality, it is already there for us. So the closer we get to the frequency of nature, the closer we get to the frequency of the bees, which is 888 hertz, the infinity dance that the female bees do when they come back to the hive to transmit energy and transmit information, that's exactly what we get to do. And so we become sovereign. And when we say sovereign, I mean literally and metaphorically, right? So a lot of people use these words very fancy in marketing, but I'm talking,
No, for real.
we literally become sovereign in all ways.
Yep.
So we literally become sovereign. And so since I've tapped into those codes of the bees, we have actually changed all of our financial structures so that the systems and the logistics, for example, we've moved all business to Indonesia. We've moved our accounts. So now we only pay 0.5% tax. I was going to get taxed 47%.
Oh my God.
Crazy. Like, I've been, you work your bum off and you end up paying nearly half of it in tax. So we've now learned how to trade and how to invest. So doing these wonderful things with money that are fun and don't require much effort. So yeah, we're really flipping everything on its head in not just the energetics of living sovereign and living free, but embodying it, grounding it, being strategic about it as well.
It's magic. And it's one thing that was so magical is that the first time we had this conversation, you were in Soros and I was on Crete. Remember that? And I was like, oh my God, no wonder I'm so drawn to this magical island, right? And now I've been 3 times and I'm going back in September because it's just it is such a beautiful and magical place. And I love the history of it and all of the messages that it's the codes, right? And it's so interesting how a lot of us that do travel, and I've now kind of been a bit of a wanderer for about the last 10 years or so, it didn't dawn on me until maybe halfway through that there's a reason why I'm going to all these places that I have to go to. It's not like I'm just like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to go, to the south of France or to Paris or wherever, or Mallorca, wherever it was that I was feeling called to. There was a very specific, divine assignment that I was called to be there for a period of time or for a specific reason. And it's just interesting to look back at the breadcrumbs, from this angle, looking back to see, oh, now it all makes sense, why I was drawn to Crete the original first time, and Sardinia and all the places that you've also been, which also is really interesting.
Isn't it?
That we have. I'm like, oh, you're going to France? Yeah, me too. Oh, you're going there? Yep. Okay. It's just really interesting how it all flows if we just let it. And I think I talk a lot about doing life on a magic carpet ride, and I think there was a few years that it got a little, for everyone, like 2020, 2021, part of 22 was just a little sticky, a little funky, and I think people are just now coming out on the other side of what's possible for them and starting to believe in a new way of living and being and serving. And you are definitely embodying that for us, which is so wonderful.
And I just want to speak into that being, for yourself and myself and many other women, being called to go to these different places and just following the call, right? Without question. I believe what we're doing is we are going to these sacred places to reactivate the energetic fields there, to bring the information, the codes, to then share them with others, to activate others. And what's really interesting in my mentoring business, and I know this is the same for you, that it's just being, and I want to be really mindful, this is a caveat, this is not egoic.
Right.
But just by being in our presence, you receive the codes.
So true. It's so true. And I think the words, the language is so important. It's being, not necessarily doing, right? So there was a lot of times I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do a thing here? Do I need to do some fancy ceremony or whatever? The message was like, no, you just need to be here. And I was like, but how is that possible? Right?
Yeah.
Possible. But it is in the being, not the doing. And I think that's the old paradigm, if you will, I don't like to use that word all the time, but like that's the old way. The new way is just embodying and being, And to your point, I think what I was doing before was a lot of healing and clearing and activating, heal the land, reclaim it, receive the codes, and then activate that. And then I take that with me to the next place, and then I anchor that in. It's been really interesting since I've been back in my hometown for the first time in a really long time, because it's like now I've been all over the world, all over, and I've brought all of this back here to help heal and clear and activate here in my hometown. But I also had to have it for myself too. Like I had to do the work on myself in order to hold the highest frequency that I've needed to do while I'm here. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah, look, I love that. And I feel like this is the next level conversation for people, because there's still a lot of women who are, and no judgment, like, but doing the ceremonies and doing the work, and it has to be a thing and a ritual and all of that. And I started to give up a lot of that stuff a couple of years ago. And, like not even journaling anymore, not even lighting a incense, not even nothing, right?
No crystal.
And yeah, I had to give up all my crystals anyway. I can't carry them in my suitcase, right? And so the more that I stripped away the physical things, the more that I realized I am the activator. I am the frequency, as are you, as is everyone, by the way, when they are being. And so just a fun example of this is when I hosted a retreat with you in Italy, in Tuscany. It's so funny that like, sometimes you think of like a spiritual women's retreat and there's going to be all of the things and, all of the things. My God, we had the most fun ever.
Best time ever. Truly. Dance Party USA, baby. Like it was so fun.
Right? So fun. In our socks, scooting down the hallway, right? And this is like a business spiritual retreat. And what we found though is that the women that came on the retreat, they just got to be in their highest vibrational frequency without
just joy,
doing anything, which is joy, right? And surrender and And so, if anyone looks at my Instagram, they're going to see I'm not that serious, right? I am jumping off boats constantly. I'm having champagne. I'm, dancing salsa and doing all of the things rather than necessarily what you would expect from, a spiritual business mentor. And I used to do all of that stuff. And now I'm like, oh, well, this is just who I am and I'm having the best life ever. And that's the frequency, because when we're in that joy and play and rest and deliciousness, that's when you become so magnetic that you cannot help for money to come to you. Which draws me to another point, which is probably a question you were about to ask me, which was I literally took a sabbatical from business for 6 months.
Right.
I closed everything. I had no website, wasn't doing social media, nothing, not a thing. And in that 6 months, I just played. I was like my full maiden self, right? And, I'm nearly 52, but like playing like I'm 20. I don't even know how I made money, but every month I was making like 10K.
Doing nothing, having a great time.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And I used to make a lot more than that, and that's fine. But, 10K a month, not working?
Put on boats, drinking bubbles. Yes, that's the vibe. That's the vibe. But here's the truth is, I think what we've hit on is, again, less doing, more being, having more fun. A lightness of spirit and joy is the most compelling energy and frequency, right? And I think that's actually, and I'm a double Scorpio, right? So I can go dive deep in the waters of all the things. I can be super intense and, we can talk about anything. Nothing rattles me. But what I also realize is that what I feel like we're being called now to create a new earth is that just frequency of fun and light and effervescence. So that's why, and this about me and my brand, it's like sparkling it's everything. It's physical and beautiful coupe de champagne, right? But it's also the effervescence, the lightness of spirit. And I think the more that we embody that and trust that that keeps us on, when we follow our highest excitement, that's the magic carpet ride right there. And the people that are meant to be in our life will be drawn to that. And those that aren't will will be like, no, not the vibe. But I totally agree with you on it's almost the word performative comes to mind. And I just can't do that vibe anymore. Like, even when
Yeah.
I see it, I'm just like, oh, sugar, you could just be yourself. You don't have to be all fancy spiritual, and I get it. It's almost like a rite of passage. You go through that part of the journey and then you go out of it. And then you get old enough where you're like, I don't care what people think. I don't really care what they say. I'm just going to be and live the truth of who I am and trust that, again, authenticity is the highest vibrational frequency. That's it. Just be the truth of who you are. Do the thing.
Yeah, which comes back to the bees. Like the bees aren't performing.
Right.
They're not trying to be anything. They're not trying to make honey. They're not trying to make the hive. They're not trying to find their space. They're, to be cliche, they are just being.
It's almost like if we all just could go back to our original divine blueprint, the perfection of our soul and the truth of who we are, just almost like when we were younger, right? It's interesting, like I said, about being here in my where I grew up. There's a feeling of like, oh, I remember who I was then and what I loved and what lit me up and what made me happy, and bringing some of those things back through to this new chapter, even though we're only 27.
Yeah, correct.
Allowing myself to just have more of that is really interesting. And I don't think it could have happened had I not been here. If that makes sense. Like, it almost
Yeah.
be in this space and anyway, with people that I've loved and have known my whole life. It makes a big difference. It's interesting.
Yeah, and something you were just saying reminded me, and this will be relevant, so bear with me, it sounds a bit off kilter, but reminded me that when I was in Egypt in March, I was at the Temple of Hathor, and everyone was in a particular temple area, and I had finished being in there. And so there was a guard, and he said to me, would you like to go up in the ceiling? There was like a hole about that big. And I'm like,
The higher
okay.
realms, yes, I'm in. Oh my God.
I'm like,
Of course.
yes, I do. So I'm
Yeah.
by myself, right? So, there's a lot of trust that needs to happen here. So anyway, he gives me a ladder. So I climb up this ladder and I go through this hole. I had to shimmy, like head first and shimmy, shimmy. I had no idea where I was going, right? So shimmy in,
Yeah.
do a little camo roll. Anyway, I'm in a long, like a thin, I could kind of put my arms out just to my sides. So a long, thin, long hallway, quite a high ceiling. And so down the side is all hieroglyphs of blue lotus flowers, right? So blue lotus, like the trumpet flowers. And then I walk all the way down to the end, and there is the large face of Hathor, just simply this large face of Hathor. And so I said, well, hi, Hathor. Clearly I'm meant to meet you today. And I said, what is the wisdom that you want to share with me? And, she said, the healing is in the stars.
Oh,
And I'm like, okay, anything else? Could you be more specific? She was like, nope, that's it, right? So anyway, so I leave that, right?
yeah.
Anyway, and then as I'm exploring all of the different temples and everything, I'm then noticing, just like I did with the bees, I'm noticing a lot of the ceilings are covered in stars. And so then the more information starts coming through, that I was reminded that we need to get back to our natal charts, our astrology, our astrological natal charts, and really dive in deep to that. And I think in the spiritual community, we kind of lost that for quite a while. And so the more that I'm working with myself, with my natal chart, and the more that I'm working with my client's natal chart, I'm uncovering the blueprint, more of it, of who they really are, and more of myself. And then it's even guiding the grid lines across the planet in relation to our astrology, so astrocartography. And then, of course, I find out that I'm living on my Jupiter line here in Greece, right? And then I was on my Sun line in Spain. And, of course, I grew up on my Chiron line, my wound line, relationships and karmic, all of the things, right? So I feel that's really important to remind people the healing is in the stars.
Absolutely. And I think if for those of you that are listening and have never heard of astrocartography or have not had a reading, it is fascinating to me, right? And I've done it because, again, when we were looking to move from, Tuscany, like from that region, like to the next place, where's the next available space for me that's going to be in the highest and best? And it really does provide some powerful information. And as you look back too, again, hindsight, it's always like,
Yeah.
well, but like you can look back in your life and be like, wow, that was a really rough time. It's because you were not in the right place. It just works, or
Right.
you were for whatever you needed to have at the time.
Correct. Correct. So there
That,
is no
that's
wrong
the
place. It's
truth.
just
Yeah, I know.
everything's always perfect.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And
It,
so, further to that as well, the more that we get in touch with the natural cycles of the sun, the moon, and the planets, like every pyramid across the world, every temple is in alignment with whether it's Orion's constellation, whether it's the sun, the moon, all of the things, right? And there is like pyramids, literally hundreds of thousands of them all across the planet.
all around the world. Yep.
All of those have been built in alignment with those. So it's a reminder, the more that we uncover these temples, pyramids, what's underneath the pyramid. Quick story. The night that we were in the King's Chamber in March on the equinox was when the announcement was of all of the findings underneath Khafre, the other pyramid. Of course.
Of course. I
Of
messaged you
course.
immediately. I was like, oh my gosh, have you seen this yet?
I
Because I
know.
know it's there and it's so cool. Yeah, it is. The
Right?
alignment of things is so magical.
Yeah.
I remember when I just left Crete and I went to the south of France, but a new part near the Pyrenees. And I was with a dear friend and teacher, and she was driving me through all these beautiful sacred sites for Mary Magdalene. And she's like, okay, now I want you to turn and look out the window and look straight that way. And she's like, those are all the crystal pyramids that are lined up. They're in a whole line, like one after another. They're covered in trees and green, but you can clearly see. It's just like remarkable how they are truly everywhere.
Yeah.
Are truly everywhere.
Truly.
Mm-hmm.
We found natural pyramids in the middle of the desert, in the Western Desert in Egypt. I co-hosted a retreat in Spain only a couple of months ago, and straight out from our villa, there's a pyramid. Crazy.
It's crazy. And it feels to me like there's so many more people that are opening up to, well, let's just say opening up, right? Opening up their mind, opening their heart, opening up to the possibility that life is going to be very different moving forward, which also feels really good. And it feels really exciting for those of us that are trying to anchor in this new blueprint, right? And
Yeah.
I've been talking a lot about our ability to hold the frequency of unconditional love, and how that is where the majority of us are going to have to shift into that frequency in order to help as many people shift into this new way of being, right? And it's not easy to be in that space. But man, once you can activate it, and sometimes it takes other people to help you do that, which has been my case, which I'm like, oh, that's what it feels like again. Okay, got it, got it. And then once you can feel it, you can start to hold it, and then ideally embody that. And I also feel like that's part of our job as we go to these other places and come and travel. We have to anchor that frequency wherever we are in order to help as many in that area, right? Isn't it like
Yeah.
700,000 people based on Hawkins scale?
Yes.
That frequency, if you can hold unconditional love, you can impact 750,000 people around you. I mean, those are entire cities, right? Like that could
Right.
be cities, islands even.
Just by being the
Just by being.
frequency.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
That
this
I
is,
think is powerful beyond measure, actually.
yeah, right?
I still
That's
have
the
quite a way.
leading edge.
It really is. It really is. And I
Yeah.
think part of what I'm feeling called to do now, there's a couple of things, but this particular one is there is a healing that needs to take place for so many that have had, heartbreak or grief or neglect or anything that's not of love, right? So if you think about that, anywhere that your body has experienced that anything that is not of love needs to be purified and cleared and almost, what is that Japanese concept, kutsiagi or something, where like the pottery breaks and you fill it with the gold in between and put it back together?
Yeah.
Or
That's not the word, but yeah.
whatever it is. I don't know the word. I can't remember. Anyway, but you know
Is
what
it
I'm talking about.
ikigai?
No, that's the that's the space of your passion and your purpose and your way to make money or something. But it starts with a
Someone
K.
chat GPT.
Somebody find it and let us know. But it's that concept where the pottery breaks, like a heart breaks, and then you put it back together, and it's something new. I think for so many people, that needs to be the next piece, is that healing and restoration through the divine heart, and then that way they're able to reclaim and hold the frequency of unconditional love. So that's what I'm working on right now. No big deal.
Yeah. No big deal. Yeah. And the gold is already within the body. And I
Yeah.
mean, not just metaphorically, literally. That was another channel message I got back in Puerto Rico in Feb 2023, that we are made of gold. And then I was reading about how our blood, the heart doesn't pump the blood. The monotopic gold within our blood helps to create the piezoelectric currency
Okay.
that pulses the blood through our veins. Now, someone who's a scientist will probably help me explain that a little bit better, but we actually literally have gold in us. And the more that the frequency of our emotions rises, the more that that gold is activated and turned on. And so therefore our body technology starts coming online. And so therefore healing happens quicker.
Everything.
You know, I feel like saying it's almost not going to matter what you eat.
Well, I was just thinking that. That's maybe why you're going to say that, because I was just doing some research on, because I am a science nerd and love geeky things like this. There's actually something called mana that it's a supplement that I was researching, and they were talking about just this, and it has gold in it, and also these magical salts and minerals and everything, Dead Sea salts and everything. And they were talking about how at some point, because we're moving from a carbon-based body to a crystalline light body. Another thing, could be a whole other conversation. By taking these types of supplements and things into our body, we're able to really function and thrive on sunlight and pure water, and not necessarily going to need
Yes.
much food. Food will be more like social and fun, because it's like this is how we connect to each other and we enjoy and we celebrate. Our biological needs are going to be met in a different way as we move on,
Yes.
which I find fascinating. We'll be able to fast longer and be able to thrive and be healthy,
Yeah.
live longer and radiate light. So that's
Correct.
going to be the thing. It will be a complete radiation from within, light radiation in this new crystalline light body based on those supplements and gold that's going to be in our bodies.
Right. And here's the thing, I didn't know that, but of course I knew that because we're tapped in. And so,
Yep.
when we talk about science and, sometimes people think spirituality is a little too esoteric. It's like, well, actually, it's the science. So, this is where we're all going to, I've channeled this for a while, we're becoming telepathic. We used
Yep.
to be telepathic. We won't need words anymore, because I'm actually finding there's not the words in the vocabulary of the new earth. And so there doesn't actually need to be words going forward.
Maybe
So
not.
we will be able to literally just
Yeah.
have
I
the
could
knowledge
send a
transmitted.
message from here to Soros and be like, what's up?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just know.
Yeah.
And yes, and I agree, that we're going into a new body that doesn't need as much fuel, but it's all for pleasure. The honey,
Yes.
right? If you think about how honey used to be consumed, it would be devoured when you found, if you were living off the land, you may not have had sugars, like natural sugars, for a long time. When you find the hive, you devour,
Yep.
right?
Right.
Knowing and trusting there's always going to be more, and it's delectable and it's delicious, and that frequency gets to be what we consume, so we get to do it from pleasure, but not being, it doesn't need to resource us, right?
Yeah, that's the concept. It won't be required, it will be enjoyed.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? So fascinated by that. I'll get you the details on that research that they're doing right now, because I think you'll enjoy it.
Well,
And
I'm a manifesting generator 1-3. The one
yep.
in me is the researcher. You probably have a bit of one in you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I'm 3-6. So
Oh, yes.
mm-hmm.
Seeker of truth and knowledge.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
love to learn things. Like I
Yeah.
said, super nerd on all of this stuff. But it's fun. It's fun to use your brain to find new ways of serving, and I'm really excited for everything that's just unfolding, even though it feels, and I know a lot of people that might be listening feel like we are going through like a birth canal almost, like
Yeah.
a unraveling and breaking down, but that is what comes before the breakthrough, right? And so now the more we can focus on what we want to create in the new world, the new earth, this golden age. And obviously the honeybees and the honeycombs are a huge part of that. But that's where we need to put our focus. That's where we need to anchor our energy and hold the vision of the life that we want to create. And I am so thankful to have people like you on the journey with me, just to help, first of all, be like, okay, I'm not crazy. It's not like just my wild idea or what's happening to me personally. There's so many of us that are feeling the same way and feeling called to step into just a whole new way of living and loving and leading, really. And now is the time for that. So I just want to honor you for, first of all, doing the work that you're doing and just being the love that you are in the world and a dear friend. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks, Hayley. Yeah. And I think that, the new way of doing things we still haven't even tapped into yet. We sometimes think we're in the new way, but it's actually even different to how we think. And I've got the glimpse of that, and so have you, which is the more that we are being so super present in the frequency of joy, peace, unconditional love. That is the new earth. It's not what
And
you
there's
do anymore, right?
And that's one thing I talk a lot about and have for a long time. Every now and then I forget, but it's like, what is my highest excitement? Follow the high, like, what is the thing that just truly lights you up so much that you can't not do it? Or that if you could just do that all day, that is a path to the magic carpet ride, right?
Yeah.
When we follow our highest excitement, when we jump off the boats, when we have the bubbles on the patio with friends or long dinners, with deep conversations and connections, those are the things that nourish us. And I think are going to be the ways forward for creating more connection, more community, and more magic in the world. I'm here for it. I'm
I'm here for
excited.
it too. Yes.
Okay, my love, is there anything in closing that you want to share? I want to make sure we will provide your information for the listeners so that way if they want to connect directly, follow you on all the socials and all the things. Anything in closing that you want to share?
The last thing that I want to share is that the next time you see a bee or a beehive is to actually tap in and ask for the messages that are relevant for you.
Okay.
Because when I was in the south of France, that's when the bees spoke to me. As crazy as this, of course they did, right? Yeah. So everyone's got a message that's their own, and yeah, to take them on their highest path of joy.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for being with us today. And thanks for everyone that is listening. And I hope you'll join us for the next episode.